Today's program is compiled and edited from the corresponding edition of the Letcher County Mountain Eagle and the Letcher County Community News Press. And this is Down Memory Lane, and our program this week takes us back to the third week of June, 1969. And if you look all around you this week, you will see a beautiful greenery covering our hillsides, roadsides, telephone poles, and all the other things that can't move. You may ask, what is this beautiful vine and where did it come from? Well, it's kudzu, and if you don't have any around you where you're at just yet, just wait a week or two and it'll find you. Where did it come from, you may ask? Well, it came by railroad. The railroad company planted it along the tracks to hold the banks of the railroad bed, and now it is a resident of our county just like you. It's now your neighbor whether you want it or not. It's a jungle-like growth and grows quickly, covering everything it touches during a season. And above all that kudzu here during this third week of June in 1969, we have a bad moon arising.
Bad moon arising. There's a bad moon on the horizon.
And there you have Creedence Clearwater Revival with a number 2 song of the week for the third week of June, 1969. And back here in Letcher County, if efforts that are currently underway continue, Letcher County will soon have a home for the elderly located at the Sharon Heights Hospital property in Jenkins. The LKLP Community Action Council, headed by Chairman Bill Kraft of Mayking, along with the Kentucky River Development District, has requested the property from the Catholic Church. The Kentucky River Development District will finance the structure, and the Appalachian Regional Hospital chain of Lexington will provide the management assistance. There is also another effort underway, an effort to bring back to Letcher County large numbers of people who have left, at least for one day of celebration. The first, 4th of July, Letcher County Day, an effort to bringing back former Letcher County residents for a visit every year for the big 4th of July Letcher County Day. The plan is to have a wide variety of entertainment, including a carnival, games, music, and contests, storytelling, horse show, and teen dance, and, of course, fireworks. A full day of fun beginning at 10 a.m. and running through midnight. Down memory lane, we should send out a great big hello to Austin Napier, son of Mr. and Mrs. Carl Napier of Whitesburg. Austin has received his Bachelor of Science degree in physics from the Boston Institute of Technology during commencement exercises there last week. The Susanna Wesley Circle of the United Methodist Church meets on Tuesday of this week at the home of Mrs. Logan Collins. This month's program is presented by Mrs. James Frazier and Mrs. John L. Rivel. Those present include Mrs. Virgil Blair, Mrs. J. L. Hayes, Mrs. Stephen Combs, Jr., Mrs. Leon Wesley, Mrs. Joe Newell, Mrs. Zenith Bentley, and Mrs. Sam Franklin. The group also enjoyed a potluck dinner. Mr. and Mrs. Ivel Back received visitors from Sellersburg, Indiana this week. Lana Carol Hayes is here for a visit with her grandmother, Mrs. Burton Hall of Ermine. Lana Carroll is currently a student at Carson Newman College. Mark Adams of Whitesburg is visiting his brother Tim in San Francisco this week. Kermit Holmes is given a surprise birthday supper at Foodtown Supermarket. The Bell Bennett Circle meets this week at the home of Mrs. Albert Jones. Those present include Mrs. Ivan Maggard, Mrs. Wilgus Bowen, Mrs. James Brown, Mrs. W.L. Stallard, Mrs. Ed Moore, and others. At the Foodtown Supermarket this week at 107 South Webb Avenue in Whitesburg, you can find pork chops, center cuts, 89 cents a pound. Pork loin roast, 69 cents a pound. Bacon in 1 pound package, 69 cents. Chuck roast, 59 cents a pound. Yellow onions, a 3 pound bag, 35 cents. Head lettuce, 19 cents each. 3 pound canned Crisco, 79 cents. Scott towels in a twin pack, 43 cents. Reynolds wrap, 59 cents. And 5 cans pork and beans, $1. That's all at the Foodtown Supermarket, during this third week of June, 1969, at 107 South Webb Avenue in Whitesburg. Hey folks, want to see what a Minuteman missile looks like? Well, now's your chance. Staff Sergeants James G. Cornett from the Blackie area and Franklin Roberts from the Neon area is bringing one to Neon this week on exhibit and free to view by the public. It will be on exhibit in Neon for 1 week. During the year of 1969, we had a lot of headline events occur throughout our country that was of interest to people here in Letcher County, and we're going to go over a few of those at this time. Starting in January of 1969, the New York Mets defeats the Baltimore Colts 16-7 at the Super Bowl. Also, Richard Nixon becomes the 37th President of the United States. In February, Vince Lombardi becomes part owner and coach of the Washington Redskins. In March, Dwight D. Eisenhower, the 34th President of the United States, dies. John Lennon marries Yoko Ono, and James Earl Ray is sentenced to 99 years in prison for the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King. In May, David Korn of Dallas, Texas, buys a copy of the first printing of the Declaration of Independence at auction for only $404,000. In June, actress Judy Garland dies. Also, the gay rights movement begins in the United States in Manhattan's Greenwich Village. The Jacuzzi Brothers introduces the hot tub in California during June. In July, Neil Armstrong becomes the first U.S. astronaut to walk on the moon. In August, the first Woodstock Festival occurs on a farm in New York State. Hurricane Camille hits the Mississippi Gulf Coast and southern United States, killing 248 people. Also in August, Charles Manson and his cult murders actress Sharon Tate. In September, the first heart and lung transplant is performed in California. In October, the New York Mets wins the World Series. In December, the first Boeing 747 joins Pan American Airlines and makes its first commercial flight from Washington State to New York. The best movie for 1969 is Midnight Cowboy. And one of the best songs of the year was by Joe South, Games People Play. Joe South with Games People Play for the third week of June, 1969. And in the Blackie area this week, Bertha Logan's daughter and family are visiting her. Mr. and Mrs. Clyde Back are also being visited this week by their son Jesse and his family. Mr. and Mrs. Lee Ambergy and Pam are vacationing somewhere up north. Mrs. Lizzie Wilson is being visited by two of her granddaughters. Down Memory Lane wishes to send out a great big welcome to Bruce and Sue Howell. Bruce is now the ordained pastor of the Isom and Blackie Presbyterian churches. And Mr. and Mrs. Bill Bates spend Sunday at Buckhorn Lake. Down Memory Lane wishes to send out a great big hello this week to Private George Keith Rosenbaum, son of Mr. and Mrs. George Rosenbaum of Whitesburg. Keith has completed basic training recently at Fort Knox and is now stationed at Fort Gordon, Georgia. Seen hanging out in the Whitesburg Library this week were a fine group of young Letcher County residents, including Gene Yinger, Myra Corella, Teresa Davis, Sean Wagner, Chris Combs, and Sarah Woodring. Congratulations to Miss Linda Sue Neese, daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Leonard Neese of Thornton. Linda is a 1968 graduate of Whitesburg High School and is a contestant for the crown of Miss Kentucky 1969. Down Memory Lane wishes to send out a great big happy birthday wish this week to Mrs. Crate Hall of the Mac Roberts area of Letcher County. From the Sand Lick area this week, we find that Basil Hall and Don English are on the sick list. Mr. and Mrs. Curtis Hensley have guests for the weekend. And Daisy Holcomb is seen at the A&P Pancake Breakfast on Saturday morning. Several Whitesburg residents received letters of mistake this week from the Kentucky Department of Highways. The letters stated that their homes would be acquired to make way for the construction of a bypass around Whitesburg. The letters should have gone to owners of property along route of US 119 and US 23 from Pine Mountain Junction to Payne Gap. Officials stated that the exact route for the bypass had not yet been determined and that the mistake came about due to someone at the Pikeville office picking up the wrong mailing list for the Whitesburg-Payne Gap roadwork. Sorry about that, folks, but your bypass around Whitesburg will come some years later. The city of Jenkins this week receives a $980,000 grant from the federal government to improve the water system which serves the city. The Whitesburg Urban Renewal Project runs into trouble this week when bids were taken for the project. It seems that the lowest bid exceeded the available funds by at least $50,000. At your A&P food store this third week of June 1969, watermelons are 78 cents each. Cantaloupes, 3 for 98 cents. White bread, 4 20-ounce loaves, 89 cents. Quart jar of mayonnaise, 39 cents. Pillsbury buttermilk biscuits, 6 8-ounce cans, 55 cents. Jane Parker potato chips, a 1-pound box, 59 cents. 2 packs Kleenex design napkins, 39 cents. At Bentley's radio and TV shop on Railroad Street in Whitesburg this week, you can purchase an 8-track car tape player. The Tina Mini 8 Compact 8-track car stereo, complete with speakers, for only $59.95. Get yours today and have a stereo in your car. Congratulations to Irvin and Ethel Maggard of Eola, who will be celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary next month. And this is Down Memory Lane for the third week of June 1969. And get well wishes go out this week to Mrs. Henrietta Anderson of McRoberts, who has had minor surgery on Tuesday, and also to Mrs. Joe Ellis, who is a patient at the Wise Hospital this week. Happy birthday from Down Memory Lane to Marlene and Darlene Stidham, twin children of Mr. and Mrs. Sam Stidham. Paula K. Hampton and Sammy Hall are attending summer school at Moorhead. Ruby Ziteroff is also attending school this summer at UK. Mrs. Gladys Yantz, her daughter Donna, and husband Dickie Tucker take a trip to Frankfurt this week. Down Memory Lane would like to send out a great big hello to Specialist 4 Steve Hall of Neon, who is serving in Vietnam during this third week of June of 1969. Also, down memory lane, we'd like to send out a great big hello to Evelyn Dolores Sword of McRoberts, who this week is visiting friends Judy and Ernie Stidham, who live in Kingsport, Tennessee. Well, here we are in the middle of June, and this week is beginning to feel more like it. But just a few days ago, one could not really tell. On Monday of this week, you looked around and saw the smoke coming out of the chimneys, and you would have thought, where did summer go? Well, if you were wondering, summer doesn't actually start until later this week. Monday was, by all practical purposes and by the calendar, still spring. Lola Holcomb had guests over the weekend from Dayton and Tiffin, Ohio. Mrs. Happy Jarrett had 2 of her children home over the weekend, her son Bill from Dayton, Ohio, and daughter Linda from Lexington. And as we leave you this week, we want to leave you with this thought. If you really want to do something, you can do it. And so says the friends and family of Betsy Bear. They say that Betsy made up her mind to learn to drive about 2 months ago, and last week Betsy passed her driver's test. Well, now, Betsy's a little bit older than most of us who got our driver's test at the age we did, so congratulations, Betsy. This is Rod, and this has been Down Memory Lane for the third week of June 1969. Today's program has been compiled and edited from the corresponding edition of the Letcher County Mountain Eagle and the Letcher County Community News Press. Thanks for joining us this week, and be sure to tune us in again next week when we will take another walk down memory lane.